Oh, give thanks to the Lord, call on his name, make known his deeds among the peoples. It's good to see you this morning and to offer a special welcome to those of you who are visiting. We're certainly happy that you're here. Hope you enjoy the service and that you do worship with us again. As is usually the case, the announcements are printed in your bulletins. There are several to which I would like to call your special attention. This is the second Sunday and the last Sunday that we will be collecting special offerings for emergency relief. As a result of Hurricane Matthew, an awful lot of people lost lives, were injured, lost all of their property. So those of us who are much more fortunate and didn't lose anything are in a position where we can certainly help. So that's what the envelope in your bulletin is for. If you would like to make a special donation for emergency relief, we encourage you to do so, and we thank you in advance for doing that. When we have the checks, just put on the memo line that it is for emergency relief or hurricane something, whatever you want to put so it identifies it for us. And then we will take them, make out the checks to Chapel by the Sea, and we will send one check to the appropriate relief agency. Don't forget, those of you who have kids or are involved in the Sunday school program, that next Sunday after church there will be the Halloween costume party and movie in Chapel Hall following the service. The information is here on the special insert. Don't forget, too, that tomorrow night will be the next class in our continuing series on Man's Search for God. Going to be some special things in terms of the video presentation, so you may want to come to that 7 o'clock, and I know that you would enjoy it. On a sad note, some of you knew Bill Grossman. Most of you probably did not. For a number of years, he was the pastor at Longboat Island Chapel, and he passed away this last Friday from complications from heart surgery. So those of you who did know him, and even if you didn't, let's keep Bill and his wife Arlene in your thoughts and prayers. The rest of the notices are there. Let's now begin our service of worship.
Our invitation to celebration we will do responsively as our call to worship. You have come to the house of the Lord.
We have come as his guests and as his family.
This is a place of worship, and on this mini Easter morning,
it is also an occasion calling for celebration.
How will you worship? How will you celebrate?
We will sing and pray. We will love and laugh. We will dedicate our lives
invocation, our calling upon God, we will do in unison. O divine path by which we come to the fullness of our humanity, guide us over the obstacles which block our way, and lead us around the obstructions which hold us back. Give us a clear vision of our ultimate destination, more intimate relationship with you, and greater support for one another. Grant us the strength we will need to overcome the failings and faults of every human life, while also showing us that we contain within ourselves a divine spark of goodness. Teach us, touch us, even now, as we pray the words of Jesus. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Forgive us our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Thou shalt not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flieth by day, nor the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor the destruction that wasteth at noonday. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest they dash thy foot against a stone, against a stone. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. He shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty.
In gratitude for the many gifts we have received, and in commitment to the work of this church, let us be generous in our morning offering.
We look out our windows, O God, and we see such a beautiful world. The sun shines or the rain falls, bringing growth and renewal. We open our eyes and see such a richness of color and design that we sigh with contentment. We open our ears to the sounds of people laughing, birds singing, cars moving, trees swaying, and we have a sense that all is right in our lives. We experience the love which surrounds us and feel fulfilled and enriched. And then, oh God, we also look about us and see that the world is a mess, largely a mess of our making. You created it perfect, but what we have done to it is unconscionable. We have polluted the air and the water and the land. We have destroyed life in its many forms, including our own. We have selfishly taken and taken and taken, and too often left little for others. We have abused our roles as stewards and caretakers, thinking that we owned what you have loaned us. Can you forgive us? Will you forgive us? Help us realize that we don't deserve your forgiveness, at least until we have changed and made amends. We seek greater insight, greater courage, greater strength, greater faith for whatever lies before us. And there is always something that lies before us. Be with us as we strive to move ahead. And hear us as we continue our prayer in silence from the very depths of our beings. Amen. This morning I'm reading to you from the Hebrew Scriptures, from the book of Exodus, chapter 34, verses 29 through 35. This takes place after the children of Israel have left Egypt, and their slavery there took place over 400 years, and they have already passed through part of the wilderness, and Moses is coming down from the mountain. Moses came down from Mount Sinai. As he came down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the covenant in his hand, Moses did not know that the skin of his face shone because he had been talking with God. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses, the skin of his face was shining, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses spoke with them. Afterward all the Israelites came near, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. When Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. But whenever Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he would take the veil off until he came out. And when he came out and told the Israelites what he had been commanded, the Israelites would see the face of Moses, that the skin of his face was shining, and Moses would put the veil on his face again until he went in to speak with him. Hopefully these words will acquire greater meaning for us as we continue together in our worship this morning. Boy, are we blessed with good music. You may have heard that we have an election coming up in a few weeks. Now, of course, that's the way it used to be. People physically went to the polls early in November to cast their votes for their choices for a variety of offices. In today's world, millions have already voted through early voting or by mailed-in ballots. There are lots of positions which will be determined in this election year, and none more meaningful than the presidency of the United States. And with what's going on in our world, this could be one of the most vital elections our country has ever held because its results will impact this nation and the world for many years to come. Just between you and me, thank God the circus is almost over. And that's what it's been for at least a year and a half, the greatest show on earth, Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey notwithstanding. I just feel for all the people who will soon be unemployed or at least underemployed. Pollsters, campaign workers, television and radio commentators, sign makers, comedians, to name just a few. And of course, at least some of the losers, although most of them are hedging their bets and keeping their old jobs just in case. I received something through email which offers some interesting insights on what is going on. The heading is President in 2016. Then it continues with, for those of you who would like the very best choice for president, we have a solution. It's probably time we elect a woman. One candidate is a very special lady who has just about every answer to assist in helping us to solve our problems. Please give her your consideration. Then the next heading is Maxine for president. Now, I am sure that you have all seen those Maxine cartoons. They feature a cantankerous and rude old lady who says exactly what she thinks. So as you consider your choice for president, let me share some of what you will get delivered with her own words if you vote for Maxine. On driver safety, I can't use a cell phone while driving in my car. I have to keep my hands free for making gestures. On the technology revolution, my idea of rebooting is kicking somebody in the rear end twice. On aging, take every birthday with a grain of salt. This works much better if the salt accompanies margaritas. On safety for the elderly, don't let aging get you down. It's too hard to get back up. On automobile design, the trouble with bucket seats is that not everybody has the same size bucket. On transition from age to age, the only two things we do with greater frequency in middle age are go to the bathroom and attend funerals. On contentment, money can't buy happiness, but somehow it's more comfortable to cry in a Porsche than in a Kia. Apologies to all Kia owners. On life, after a certain age, if you don't wake up aching somewhere, you may be dead. And if you wake up breathing, congratulations, you have another chance. So there you have a bit of her outlook. Pretty practical, but probably not very presidential. So let's move on with more serious considerations. And what I want us to think about this morning is the difference between authority and power, as well as their connections to one another. If Americans were to be polled on disliked words, authority might be near the top of the list. The word and what it represents has a way of annoying us. It suggests regulation and control. It appears to oppose freedom. No matter how softly spoken, it carries the force of the law along with the weight of the establishment. When we clash with authority, we are likely to respond with such utterances as, "Who said so? You can't make me. What if I don't? Who do you think you are? Why don't you leave me alone?" We've all, at least at times, had a desire to defy authority, a desire to bend and fold, staple and punch that impersonal bill which was spawned in a computer, to write below the line, to include the other portion with our check, to fill in the blank marked for official use only, to cut off the label on a new mattress. Nonetheless, authority is here to stay. The question is not whether, but which. Without an orderly flow of authority, Genesis 1 would be reversed and creation would degenerate into chaos. This is true of government, of business, of homes, of life. Contrary to the beliefs of the French Revolution and some politicians, human beings need forms of governance with enforceable standards of performance. How about licensing auto mechanics like we do auto drivers? And protection against unwarranted actions. EPA regulations do make sure we have clean air and clean water and unpolluted earth. Authority is not all bad, or even mostly bad. When we go to the doctor or the lawyer or the counselor, we appreciate the authority that certified his or her competence. The absence of parental authority in the home results in dysfunctional homes. Society without laws would be disastrous. The aim must never be to dissolve authority, but to humanize and improve it, to make sure it is applied equally and evenly and justly. The Old Testament book of Judges ends by describing the need for authority with the ominous statement, all the people did what was right in their own eyes. Authority. To get a valuable lesson about authority, we can look at the life of Jesus. Jesus obviously made an impressive impact on his hearers. He was not an official rabbi with a ministry sanctioned by the establishment, yet he generated incredible conviction to and exerted unparalleled influence over others. Time after time, the Pharisees tried to take him down, but at one point concluded, as stated in John, "You see, you can do nothing. Look, the world has gone after him." And as observed by Luke regarding the impotence of the religious and secular leaders concerning Jesus, they did not find anything they could do, for all the people were spellbound by what they heard. Finally, we have the witness of Matthew, who, in summing up the impact of the Sermon on the Mount, observes, "Now when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority and not as their scribes." Where in the world did Jesus get such authority? Wasn't he the son of a carpenter from Nazareth? He was asked this question over and over, the same question asked of disruptive thinkers throughout the ages by the established order. By what authority are you doing these things? Surely it wasn't his voice or his appearance, television and movie portrayals notwithstanding. There is no indication in the biblical records that Jesus was a speaker with Billy Graham-type oratory ability or Ronald Reagan-type physical attractiveness. And just as surely, it did not come from his teachings per se. Little of what Jesus said was startlingly new, and most of it had been said before, although he was good at choosing and compiling. Rather, the authority of Jesus emanated from the fact that what he said had the full backing of his life. He practiced what he preached to others. He did what he demanded of others. He was what he wanted from others. Let me share with you some words on this subject from Ernest Campbell, once the senior minister at Riverside Church in New York City. What we have in Jesus is the most vivid illustration possible of the power of the lived truth. He lived the faith, the hope, the love he taught. He said many of the same things that had been said before, but when he said them, they sounded different. They carried weight and they stuck. A silent movie of Jesus' life would carry more conviction than a recording of his words. He was a bearer of power. As John so triumphantly put it, what has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. Now let me make a distinction between authority and power. In the New Testament, they are not the same. There the word exousia is used for authority, and the word dunamis is used for power. Authority means official right, and power means personal force. Authority is conferred while power is innate. Authority is extrinsic while power is intrinsic. Authority compels and power attracts. Authority is in the office while power is in the person. Jesus had authority and power, and he endowed his disciples with both. For according to Luke, then Jesus called the 12 together and gave them power and authority over all demons and to cure diseases. Too often in various organizations and situations, the people with the authority don't have the power, and the people with the power don't have the authority. Where and when they coincide, there is leadership that makes a difference. This is something we should be thinking about whenever we elect individuals to represent us in government. And while these words might be coming too late to be considered by those who have already voted, they can perhaps influence the selection of our choices in elections still to come in the future. Authority and power in the biblical sense. The world is proof that they are rarely both held by and found in the same person. I find it interesting that politicians so often call for less government, for smaller government, and yet they want so desperately to be part of that government. And where would we be without organization, without rules and regulations that guide us and protect us? Remember Moses? He was in an administrative mess in the wilderness until his father-in-law helped him to get organized. The final action of the early church was political, as it replaced Judas Iscariot, and the New Testament epistles speak often of church governance. Let me return to Moses for a moment. There he was, coming down the mountain with those tablets of law in his hands. He knew that these would not exactly be received by the people as good news of great joy. After all, he was going to have to tell them to knock off their adultery, to stop telling lies, to quit doing bad things to one another, to start taking the Sabbath more seriously. And who would he say had sent him? But when he got to the flats below, he really didn't have to say anything. Apparently, according to Exodus, the skin of his face shone because he had been talking with God. That was his power. That was his authority. He had been with God, and his whole being showed it. As with Jesus, his whole being showed who and what he was. As I look at the election which currently engulfs us, I think of how theologian Walter Locke has paraphrased 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5, which begins with, "You must understand this, that in the last days distressing times will come." The way Locke puts it is, but things are not yet at their worst. We have been warned that as the last days approach, there will be moments very difficult to face. Men's affections will be set not on God, but on self, on money, and on pleasure. This will make them braggarts about what they have, overbearing to those who have not, quick to rail both at God and man, disobedient to parents, with no sense of gratitude to any, no respect for divine things or for human affections, implacable when offended, ready to speak evil of others, with no control over their own passions, no human tenderness, no love for what is good or for those who are good, quite ready to betray their brethren, reckless in speech and action, conceited and puffed up. They will have all the externals of religion, but have long set at defiance its power over their lives. So, whoever gets elected to whichever office, they will have authority. But will they have power? The power which comes from being what they claim to be and demonstrating their character by the way they live. All candidates for all offices consistently promise the electorate new and better tomorrows. But all the promises in the world will amount to very little unless the office bearers within any structure possess both authority and power. Power. The power of love, a love like God's. God's power is less like that of a jet engine and more like that of a mother's love. A love which, as Jesus expressed it, is innovative and imaginative. Power which is not love-based, while being innovative and imaginative, becomes merely custodial and eventually resented. Real power comes from example and authenticity. The question must constantly be asked regarding our elected leaders, do they really live on and in the truth that they professed? I am depressed that too often the answer is no. But I am also depressed that too often the answer would be no when applied to those who are not politicians, including us. By what authority are you doing these things? Might be asked of many, including us. Police officer, you have your badge. That is your authority. But whether or not you have power on the street is up to you. Mother and father, you have your parenthood. That is your authority. But whether or not you have power in your home is up to you. Judges, you have your robe and your gavel. That is your authority. But whether or not you have power in your courtroom is up to you. Teacher, you have your classroom and desk. That is your authority. But whether or not you have power with your students is up to you. Businessman and woman, you have your title in your company. That is your authority. But whether or not you have power with your employees is up to you. Elected leader, you have your office and the privileges connected to it. That is your authority. But whether or not you have power with your constituents is up to you. Pastor, you have your pulpit. That is your authority. But whether or not you have power with your parishioners is up to you. Every man and every woman, you have something which gives you status. That is your authority. But whether or not you have power with anyone or in anything is up to you. Authority and power, official right and personal force. When they meet in the same person, anything can happen. Do our lives reflect what we claim to believe? Do we walk the walk after talking the talk? And what about the men and women we have voted for or will vote for? Each of us must decide that for himself or herself. In any case, after we decide, we must vote, because each and every vote counts. In 1645, one vote gave Oliver Cromwell control of England. In 1649, one vote brought about the execution of King Charles I. In 1776, one vote gave America the English language instead of German. In 1845, one vote brought Texas into the Union. In 1868, one vote saved President Andrew Johnson from impeachment. In 1876, one vote made Rutherford B. Hayes President of the United States. In 1923, one vote made Adolf Hitler leader of the Nazi Party. In 2016, one vote, yours, could determine the direction of our country and make a difference in our destiny. What part will power and authority play in the process? As we leave here, let us do our best to indeed be men of God, women of God, people of God, as we seek to serve others and thereby serve Him. And in our efforts, may the Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make His face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift the light of His countenance upon us and give us peace, both now and forevermore. Amen.
That's what I